All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. Thanks for jumping into the weekly roar today. Hey, Diane, glad you're here with me on screen. Everybody, this is the weekly roar. This week, we're continuing our growth series, and I have a very special guest to discuss the law of expansion. But first, I'm Greg Storch, and I am the founder of Lion Enterprise, leadership development and coaching company. I'm a certified professional coach, and of course, I am a certified speaker, coach, and trainer with the John Maxwell team. I have with me a very special guest, Diane Dick. She is the founder and Chief Inspiration Officer, I love that title, of Legacy Training and Development. She also does Play with Purpose, and she's leading up By Design Learning Institute. She's also a certified speaker, coach, and trainer with the John Maxwell team. She's an internationally experienced designer, speaker, trainer, and coach, with a unique ability to create highly interactive, applicable training programs that are focused on behavioral safety, leadership, and of course, employee development. So last week, if you joined us, we were talking about the importance of consistency with an amazing young leader, Miguel Diaz. And this week, we're talking about the law of expansion. Growth always increases your capacity. And when it comes to personal growth, if you want to increase your capacity, you have to change how you think and you have to change your actions. So we're going to be talking about the law of expansion. Now, when I think about this law, I get this image of a balloon, this huge balloon, like a hot air balloon, right? And I just see myself blowing up that balloon, blowing, and this thing getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as I put more into it, its capacity gets larger. It increases more and more air. But the air that I'm adding to that balloon is not synonymous with just gaining more information, right? It also represents changes to your thinking and changes to your actions. So everything I'm putting into that balloon to expand its capacity contains those three things: information, change in actions, and a change in your thought. All right, so Diane, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to the Weekly Roar.
Absolutely. I'm excited. This is going to be fun.
It is.
And you know, you and I are very the same. We want to have fun at everything we do.
Exactly.
Have fun.
Yes, exactly. Just sit back and have some fun. So Diane, I'd like to start things off by sharing with our audience a little bit about our journeys, and I would love for you to share a little bit about your growth journey, and then we'll jump into this law specific. But where did you first learn about growth, and how has your journey been for you?
You know, it's interesting, and I, as I was preparing for this, really, continued to think into that. And, I grew up, first of all, let me kind of backpedal a little bit. I grew up in Southern Illinois with a very traditional Midwestern family. I had two parents. I have three siblings. I had a very normal life, a normal middle-class life. I did not go through any trials and tribulations and things like many other people have. I feel very blessed for really the family I have and my upbringing. And I'm not going to lie to you. I know over all my years of growing up and through my, college years and young adult life, I was growing because I'm learning, right? I'm meeting new people. I'm accepting new jobs. I'm taking on new responsibilities, things like that. So I was growing. The difference, though, as I got older and maybe wiser, is I switched from this whole idea of just kind of growing organically to growing intentionally. And I honestly think that happened. And I know you and I have a very similar path with the John Maxwell team, but I honestly believe the growth in my thinking and my actions started literally only about 2.5 years ago when I joined John Maxwell. And there's a reason for that, that we'll talk about a little bit more as this call goes forward. But I have noticed a very stark difference between an organic growth as to compared to an intentional growth. And when I switched, which was my mindset, my thinking, all the things you just spoke about, Greg, when I started to switch that for myself, I have been amazed in the last 2.5 years since I've kind of been on this more intentional growth path, how many doors have opened, how many new relationships I've gained, just the change in my mindset, my confidence level, the things I'm doing now, the things I've gotten myself involved with that I never would have done probably years ago because of that switch. And I just, I feel so blessed to be where I'm at right now. And I'm looking forward to, I'm in my mid-50s, I'm 55 years old, and I'm really probably, I don't want to say for the first time in my life, but certainly very, in a good place in life and extremely excited about what I see down the pike, down the vision for me. And for me and everybody else that's in my group.
I love it.
Yeah.
Diane, I love the way you were able to drill down into the fact that where you really saw the difference was when you became intentional. And we started off the whole 2019 series with Eric G. Reed.
Yep.
Talking about the law of intentionality. And we're hearing from you how important that is. Mm-hmm. So thanks for sharing your story. In this chapter in the law of expansion, John Maxwell throws out a statistic, and I thought it was really interesting that experts believe that we only tap into about 10% of our full potential. And if that's true, then we've got a lot of capacity for improving, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's funny because when you were giving the analogy of the balloon and you mentioned the hot air balloon, my head went a little bit different direction. Is when you think about a hot air balloon, it rises, right, because of the heat, right, from the propane that goes up to the balloon and it rises. And so what enters into that balloon, the hot air, if you will, the learning, the growth that we're talking about makes that balloon rise. But as soon as they turn it off, they'll float a little bit, but then it starts to come down. And then they have to re-energize it, right, by putting more, and it goes up and down. And I think that's a perfect analogy to what we do. We make deposits into our growth a little bit and we get going, but I think sometimes we can kind of get stable and then we either go down or we go up again. And I think part of that journey you can incorporate all the laws, the law of momentum, the law of intentionality, the law of into that growth path, which is why I know you and I love this book.
Yeah. I love that visual that you created with the hot air balloon. Love it. Thank you. John speaks to a couple of things here, and he focuses because he tells us that in the law of expansion, when you're increasing your capacity, you can't just do it by consuming knowledge. That you have to do a couple of other things as well. And it says that we have to increase our capacity for thinking and for taking action. So what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about here is, what would you say, Diane, is the big takeaway from increasing your capacity for thinking?
For me, the biggest takeaway, and I guess when I say takeaway, the biggest influencing, the biggest decision I made a couple of years ago. Not just joining the John Maxwell team, that was the catalyst, really. For me, it was about putting myself in an environment with higher thinking people than me at the time. Okay. And I say that because I don't want to discount a lot of work I've done over the years, but let me kind of put this in context for the viewers, if you don't mind. For the last probably 15 or 20 years, to be honest with you, I have traveled the world. I mean, I've been to every continent except for Antarctica, and I'm still trying to get there. You can see behind me, there's a map behind me. I have a pin, which you can't see, in every place I've traveled. And let me tell you, there's a lot of pins there. I have been working in high-risk industries like oil and gas, mining, construction, manufacturing, things like that with the workers. These guys are hard-working guys, but no disrespect when I say this, they're not always the most forward-thinking people because they're out there working hard, to make our lives a lot easier. And I so totally respect that. I love the work I do. But I'll be honest with you, for 20 years, I've been in an environment and in industries that are pretty simple-minded thinkers in a lot of ways. And so when I got to the point where I had to start to expand myself because those are cyclic industries. In 2008, oil and gas went down. My work went down. It kind of forced me. And sometimes I think that happens. Sometimes we have to force ourselves or have a situation that puts ourselves out there that we have to kind of start to expand what we do and how we think. This was kind of a little bit of a forced deal, but I joined John Maxwell team when I had no work. I was in the worst financial place in really my adult life. And I spent, let me just say, a chunk of money to join this team. And I will tell you, I literally was crying, tears coming out of my eyes when I wrote that check to join John Maxwell and then the mentorship group, because I knew this was not a good time in my life. But what I did do is I invested in the one person that could make a change to this situation, and that was me. And I had never done that in my life, Greg. I've invested in everybody else, but I'd never invested in myself. And I'll tell you what, right then, that moment, tears coming out of my eyes, rocked my world in such a positive way. And from there, I have just grown exponentially. So coming back to your question, for me, the one biggest thing was putting myself in the right environment, around the right people that could sink into me, my thinking, right? And the ways I look at the world, the way I make decisions, the way I interact and treat people, all of those things. And when I made that one decision to do that, that was a turning point for me.
Wow. That story gave me goosebumps. And hey, I just wanted to tell you, we've got our friends here. We've got Chuck Parker watching. We've got Melanie Claus H and Sonia and Nellie. Hi, you guys. Thanks for joining. Let's see. Who else? Oh, Chris, my friend from Northern Virginia, jumping in here. Thank you guys for jumping on. If I don't see you and give you a shout out, I'm sorry I didn't catch you. But I caught something that Melanie said. She's like, listening to us, it's almost every law in this book.
It absolutely is. And that's why it's really hard to just, single out one law. And you know this, Greg, because they all start to, complement each other. And all those people you named out, at least, most of the ones I heard, are all people that I am now attached to or connected with that I never was before. And every single one of those people have invested in me and sunk into my life and my thinking, as I hope that I have done with them. Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, I looked right over it, and our other Melanie Fusilier.
My two Mels.
Well, so hi, Melanie. Thanks for jumping on. Diane, your point of, your story and investing in yourself, we don't just want more, we want better. Yeah. And this is, to me, a mindset thing, in my opinion. Because a lot of our limitations are a result of our belief. not lack of ability. The messages that we tell ourselves, the things that are said in our mind that keep creeping up and presenting themselves are, they're called limiting beliefs for a reason. That's what keeps our capacity low.
Mm-hmm.
But the nice thing is you can change your thinking. And that's what's good for the people that want to grow and increase their capacity. So, Diane, will you talk a little bit about why you must change your thinking and your actions, not just one or the other, in order to increase your capacity? You've touched a little bit on it, but just dovetail a little bit into that.
No, absolutely. And when, as I think about that, I can look at this and address this in both directions, meaning when you start to increase the capacity of your thinking, which then impacts your belief system, that BS, okay, belief system, right, that we talk about. But once you start to increase the capacity of your thinking and the belief in yourself and the belief in your abilities, so that is starting to, starts here, then that starts to translate your more willingness and ability to take action, because you believe now that you can actually be successful at what you want to accomplish in life. And many times, I think it's just human nature, if we don't believe we can be successful, then we hesitate to take action because nobody likes to fail. That was probably one of the biggest mind shift changes I've made, Greg, for myself, because I definitely, and I can't really identify why this is because I really had a supportive family, but I have always had this fear of failure. I just wanted to do it right. I wanted to do it well. I wanted to succeed. And I didn't want to go through those trials and tribulations. And maybe because I haven't had a lot of those, in my life, then I haven't built up that, I don't know, that resistance, if you will, that we build up to those things. But once I started thinking and seeing failure as, a positive, and that's just a natural progression of success, oh my God. I mean, just that one mind shift changed my actions, right, that I took to start By Design Learning Institute, by Play with Purpose, and these other things that I never had really even thought of before, but now I see the ability, to really make a difference in life. On the flip side, is when you start taking action and you start to see the impact of that action on yourself and others around you, that starts to shift your thinking. So it's interesting. You can put the cart before the horse before the cart, kind of thing. They both go together. And I agree with you. Both are extremely necessary for you to really break the lid off of what the potential is. Absolutely both required, because otherwise you're growing. My thing is you're growing, but the action is that growth. And so that you can benefit from that growth personally, but you can also allow other people to benefit from your growth. And that's kind of when I look at expansion. Expansion starts with me. I have to expand myself, but then I don't want to start just with myself. I want to make sure that I also share that expansion, those ideas, those thoughts, those mindsets with people around me that I love and care about.
Yes. Thank you so much for adding on to that. That was gold. We just had Andy, Terrence, and Steve jump on. They're watching us live. You guys, welcome to
Hey guys.
Roar. Diane, to your point, thinking about something is only really half the battle, right?
It is, absolutely.
You have to take proper action on the right thought. And doing that is what really moves us forward. And as I'm reading this chapter, I don't know if it was in this chapter or somewhere else in the book, but John always shares a story about his dad giving him this riddle. And the riddle is this. I want to share it with our audience. 5 frogs are in a log. 4 decide to jump in the water. How many frogs are left on the log? And, naturally, John would always tell his father, there's 1 frog left on the log. And John's father said, nope, all 5 frogs are still on the log. Why? Because making a decision is not taking action. That huge. So I just love tying
it's no different than when people say, okay, I'll try to do this, right? Well, trying isn't doing, or I'll think about it, right? You gotta be willing to jump in a little bit. And I'm not saying, I say jump into the pool, both feet all at the same time and totally immerse, but man, you got to start sticking your toe in that water. You got to start trying things. And I know I showed you before we got on an image, and you have that whole growth image where you have the comfort zone, right? That we all live in, on a day-to-day basis. But once you start to step outside that comfort zone, it's uncomfortable. And there's a fear, there's an anxiety that goes with that because it's something unknown to us. But as we continue to stretch ourselves, right, and expand our thinking and our actions, and then we start to gravitate into the really, oh my God, exciting zones is the learning zone and the growth zone. But it takes that stretching of yourself, which I know goes into a whole nother law, but it takes that expansion of ourselves for us to really put ourselves in the environment for us to develop, grow, and then be able to impact others.
Man, Diane, you are just dropping the truth bombs. I want to welcome our good friend, Alvin Buckley.
Hey, Alvin. Hey, Alvin's got a great book coming out. Can I plug him real quick? He's got a he's writing these kids' books called, I think he's still working on the title, but it's all around this guy named Buddy. And it's all about tackling kind of issues that kids have in schools and in life. And he's really getting close to publishing his first book. So Alvin, good luck to you. Come on, let's make that book happen.
Alvin's here, and I want to recognize a very good friend of mine from the Navy days. I've known Brett for a long number of years. So Brett, welcome. And of course, our superstar from last week, Miziel, just jumped on.
Hey, Miziel.
Hello.
Man, rock stars, baby. I mean, those are all people.
Yeah.
Greg, these are all people that we have in our inner circle that have just poured into us. I mean, and I know we are both so blessed to have these folks in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Diane, what are some key things to keep in mind for somebody that's wanting to increase their capacity for action?
Yep. So I first said it, and I just want to reinforce. I thought about this. I came up with 5 different things that I thought about. One, I've mentioned, put yourself around the right people in the right environment that challenges your thinking. I mean, that's just number one. I know I keep going back, but it has been just so important to me. I think the second thing is, and I'm working on this, to do at least one thing every day that contributes to your growth. Because I think sometimes we jump in and we want to just tackle the world in, all at once and take eat the whole, pie in one bite rather than, one bite at a time type of thing. And so I think it's the little things we do every day that compile up and upon each other, to gain the momentum. So that's the second thing. The third thing I kind of wrote down was challenge the status quo. I think always ask, what can I do better? What can I do differently? What could shake this up a little bit? So that you can really open yourself up to new opportunities. And I think that's what I got stuck in for many years, is I got so comfortable working in that industry with those people that I just kept doing it. I could do that in my sleep, and I got really comfortable in that. And it wasn't until I changed my environment and the people and put myself around those higher thinking people that my brain, it just started to challenge the way I think things. And I started doing things differently because of that. So my third thing, take new adventures, try things new, even though it doesn't work out perfectly, have fun in the journey. Because It's not always about the outcome. You know this, right? It's not about the outcome. It's about the journey, and the adventure you go through. Enjoy the journey. The fourth thing is get comfortable with failure. Because when you do step outside your comfort zone, it is not going to feel, probably the most comfortable for you. But that's when you're growing. If you're not feeling uncomfortable, then you're not growing. You're not putting yourself out there. And again, big lessons I've learned over the years. And I think the fifth thing is share what you're learning with others. Share what you're learning with others. But I'm going to put a caveat on that, I think, because I've seen quite a few posts recently on the John Maxwell Facebook page of people talking about being in a relationship or having family members that do not support their journey. And I think when I say share what you're learning with others, find other people in your life that can share this, this growth path with you, and that really respect what you're doing and are willing to support you in that effort. And I'm not saying to shut all those other people out, but I am saying set some boundaries for yourself, because that's the negative energy that's going in this side, in your head. And I want to minimize that negative energy and increase the positive energy coming in, and starts to switch you.
Okay, so Diane, number 6, set boundaries. And number 7 was limit negative influences in your life.
There you go.
Love it. All right. A lot of folks out there will be familiar with this, but I'm just going to summarize it as you will never change your life until you change something you do daily. That's straight from John Maxwell, and I'm going to share that. So we're bumping up right on 5:30, and we started on time. So in respect of everybody's time, I wanted to wrap it up. But how I want to do that, first of all, is I just want to get your last thoughts, Diane, on this chapter, the law of expansion. Somebody's tuning in, they don't even know what the law of expansion is. What would you say, and what are your final thoughts?
Well, I was looking at a book, and there were 3 questions at the back of this chapter that they ask in the action. And it is, ask yourself these 3 questions. If I knew I couldn't fail, what would I attempt? If I had no limitations, what would I like to do? And if finances were not an issue, what would I be doing in my life? And if you think into those questions a little bit, think about the mindset of your answers. Because do you kind of go into this when you're answering these questions, what would I do, right, if I did not have these limitations on me? If your mind kind of triggers over to, oh, that's not realistic, or there's no way that can happen, that's a mindset thing. You need to check that. And I'm just a believer, is I can't change anything in my life until I become aware of it. And then once I become aware of it, then things start to happen. But if you answer those questions and start to dream a little bit, and instead of asking yourself, or telling yourself there's no way I can make that happen, changing that mindset to more of how can I make that happen, with that more proactive, action-oriented, thinking, that's when doors start to open, opportunities start to present themselves, people start entering into your life that are going to feed you. And that's when that's what will start to rock your world and start to change a whole different path for yourself. So that's what I would say.
Man, brilliant. Diane, I've enjoyed this half hour with you.
Yeah, me too.
How can people get a hold of you, and what are you currently working on?
Yep, real quick. First of all, my company is Legacy Training and Development. So Legacy TD for traininganddevelopment.com is my website. Diane Dick at legacytd.com is an email address. But yeah, check out some of the things. I mean, my big specialty are I divided in 3 things. So you mentioned play with purpose. If you're a facilitator out there looking for engaging activities to help kind of up level your coaching or your training experiences, that's what play with purpose is. There's a Facebook page that I have, and I just feed into other facilitators. So that's what that does, and I continue to do that. Obviously, I have some clients, corporate clients. I'm doing training. I'm working with a mining company right now up in Canada, and I have a 1.5 year long contract with them, and I'm really helping them change their culture. And that's really exciting for me because it's pushing my limits to things in my capacity, things that I'm doing that I've never done before. So I'm actually real excited to kind of present myself. And that's another testament that I don't know if I would have ever stepped into that years ago by myself, because I don't know if I would have had the confidence in myself, where now very differently I jump in and go with it. And then the third thing is the thing that you and I are a part of, along with Melanie Ake, that's on the line. And we have a new partner coming on very shortly, is the By Design Learning Institute. And I am excited. That is my vision for the rest of my life. I am soaking into that and sinking into that, bringing in great people. And as you know, it's a online virtual group coaching or training programs for people that are looking for personal development or business building, because we have Life by Design and Business by Design. But then I'm also going to be launching virtual training sessions. And you'll see one. In fact, I'll put it in the link. I'm going to create an event today, and it's all going to be around how to have a solid, effective performance conversation, a coaching conversation. And I'm going to share with you a model I created, and we're actually going to experience a skill development virtual training. And so I'd love for you guys to join. I have a lot going on, and I'm excited about it.
No, that's awesome, Diane. It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking time out of that busy schedule. And to all of you watching live today with us, thank you too.
Absolutely.
I appreciate your support. I'm going to be back here next week, same place, same time, with another colleague and a new friend of mine who's making her dreams a reality. He's doing tons of cool stuff. Sonia, founder of Etch Your Life. She's going to join me from Little Rock, Arkansas next week to talk about the law of contribution and how you can help others grow by just growing yourself. So until then, be powerful, but stay poised just like a lion. Bye, everybody.